Mason High School. I'm Mr. Little. I'm a social studies teacher and also a coach at the high school, and I'm excited to talk to you today about why the R-Factor system was introduced to Mason High School. In the fall of 2017, Mason High School had our fourth student in 4 years commit suicide. After that was announced to our staff, a lot of us came together and were very concerned about the overall culture of our school and the anxiety that our student body was feeling. So we felt that there was something we needed to do in order to address that issue. So a group of teachers attended a conference led by Tim Kite, who was the founder of Focus 3, and he introduced us to the R-Factor system. We feel that the R-Factor system is a toolbox. It's not an answer, but we're hoping that kids will find this 6 disciplines of the R-Factor helpful in managing their daily lives and helping them become the best version of themselves. Today we're going to talk about the second R-Factor discipline, which is get your mind right. But before we talk about that, I would like to review what Coach Scher talked about last time, which was R1 or press pause. To revisit the formula once again is event plus response equals outcome. The idea behind it is that we can't control the events in our lives, we can't control the outcomes in our lives, but we can control our R's. So the most important pause point is the proactive pause. We think it's very important for people to set goals prior to any event that they encounter. And so I think our student body is very good at setting goals for themselves. And so the more we can do that, we can better manage the outcome that we might get. The pause after the O is called a reflective pause. Reflective pause is us reflecting on the situation that we were in, and did we get the R that we wanted? If we didn't get the R that we wanted, what can we do next time in order to better that? So proactive and reflective pauses require tremendous amounts of thinking before and after an event. We believe that if we get good at those two areas, then we'll be better at the third pause, which is situational. Every day we encounter multiple events, multiple people, and how we respond to those people and events oftentimes determines how people think and feel about us. So if we can get good at the reflective and the proactive pauses, hopefully we'll be more disciplined in our situational responses. Today we're going to talk about R2, which is getting your mind right. Getting your mind right has 4 elements to it. The first one is what are you focusing your attention on? Number 2 is how are you talking to yourself? 3, how we talk to ourselves impacts how we feel. And then 4 is how we feel impacts our action. So what we want to do is talk a little bit about each one of those 4 elements of what's called the mindset cycle. First and foremost is remembering what we give attention to in life is going to oftentimes determine how we feel. So all the times in school, we're confronted with things that really don't even matter. So if you're constantly focusing on things that you really can't control in your life, we oftentimes use the phrase controlling the controllables, you're going to often get yourself more and more anxiety. So one of the things that the R-Factor does is brings us what we call self-awareness. Constantly be asking yourself, what are you giving attention to? And then oftentimes how we pay attention to those elements determines how we talk to ourselves. One of my favorite things as a teacher is whenever I'm getting ready to give a test or a quiz, right away the atmosphere of the room is negative self-talk. All my students are constantly going around the room talking about how hard it's going to be, talk about how either they didn't study, or B, they studied 5,000 hours. And so depending on the self-talk that they're giving themselves, they're already hyping themselves up to either do really well on the test, or obviously they're talking themselves negatively down on how they're going to perform. Those of you that are in music or you're in athletics, we know that self-talk is incredibly important, especially in the days of the internet. Week 10 this year, our football team played Princeton. We knew that if we won that game, we were going to put ourselves in a position to be in the playoffs. But 2 of Princeton's players were Division I athletes going to Ohio State. So if our kids would have had the negative self-talk that we're playing a team that on paper and according to all of the college scouts have better athletes than us, we'd have had no chance probably going into that game and winning. But because we constantly focused on self-talk and getting our athletes believing that we could compete with them, even though we were down 19-7 to start the game, we ended up winning the football game 35-17 and qualifying for the playoffs. So we believe self-talk is really, really important. I know that, all people kind of like to surround themselves with people and kind of joke around and talk negatively about things. But what we need to realize is that if you're constantly doing that, you're going to eventually get yourself into a very negative mindset. And that negative mindset ends up negatively impacting our emotions. There's becoming more and more of a direct correlation today by psychologists that this negative self-talk is actually impacting young people's feelings. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing growing rates of depression and anxiety. And so we really want our student body to start focusing more and more energies on being aware of how you're talking to yourself, being aware of how you're talking to other people, and that is actually making a huge impact on how people are feeling. And so we want to kind of bolster more of a positive atmosphere here at school, getting people to believe and have more positive affirmation and when they talk about themselves, and more importantly, when they're talking to other people, because we feel that will make us feel better. And as a result of that, we'll have more positive actions. So when we look at, once again, the mindset cycle, it's what we focus on, how we talk to ourselves. How we talk to ourselves impacts how we feel. How we feel determines our actions. So what we want to do is they're what we call mindset traps. Okay, mindset traps. So one of the things that we're going to want you to think about here in your small group is, do you fixate on an E? All right, that's trap number one. Do you fixate on an E? What I mean by that is there an event coming up in your life that you're very, very nervous about. All right, maybe you have an exam coming up, or you have a big recital in music. And because you're so nervous about that event that's coming up, it's impacting negatively everything else in your life. On the other end of the spectrum, a person. All right, we know that there's certain people in our lives that we may not always get along with. So you constantly fixate on this person that agitates you, makes you nervous, and so therefore that's having an adverse impact on your life. So one of the things we want you to get out of this R2 is that we need to recognize when we're getting fixated on an event or a person and find someone to talk to help us get out of that negative mindset. The second thing that we want you guys to focus on that is also a trap is when things get difficult, all right, we oftentimes quit, all right? You probably heard of the saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So one of the things that we need to work on is realizing that the first time we attempt or do something, we are probably not going to be successful. And so therefore, it goes back to what Coach Scher was talking about, the reflective pauses. We need to go back and figure out why we were not able to do that. So what we're hoping to do is teach resilience. All right. The first time you do a math problem, or the first time you try a new skill in a sport or in music, it is going to be difficult. And we want to train our mindset to overcome those obstacles and hopefully help us get over that negative mindset and those negative feelings that we're feeling.